Hi everyone, my name is Vriens, and I'm the general manager for Revel, a shared electric moped startup. And what I'm about to talk to you about today is something that gets people super riled up. At community board meetings, on the street, you've probably seen many people lose it, maybe even this week, and it's only Wednesday. What am I talking about? I'll give you a hint. Yes, that is a rat riding a subway pole. But what I'm here to talk to you about is not rats riding subway poles. I'm here to talk about New York City's transportation system, and in particular, New York City's access problem. Robert Moses was a government official back in the 1900s who he was the design force behind a lot of our highway systems in New York City and how they're built. And how you can see from this image here, which is the West Side Highway, is that all of our highways are built kind of hugging the riverside. They are a barrier between the people and the waterfronts. And he built it that way because he absolutely loved cars. So he wanted to cruise down, the FDR or the West Side Highway on a Friday with his chauffeur and look at the view. You can tell that New Yorkers are very good at compartmentalizing because they can, do yoga next to the river and also next to an 8-line highway. It's pretty insane. So the New York City Subway, we've all complained about it lately, but I revere the New York City Subway, I really do. It's phenomenal. It was built over 100 years ago, and to this day, it still carries 5.4 million people every single day. I mean, that's just astronomical, it really is. But here's the one issue with the New York City Subway, is that all the roads lead to Manhattan. When the subway system was built over 100 years ago, Brooklyn still had hinterlands and farmland. It wasn't a huge job center. But today, there are job centers popping up in Long Island City, where we are today. They're popping up in Dumbo, downtown Brooklyn. Downtown Brooklyn alone is a huge business improvement district, one of the largest in the United States. But if you're a young person who lives in Astoria, and you're trying to get to downtown Brooklyn for a job offer, that might not be possible. But these days, the likelihood of you getting a job offer in downtown Brooklyn is just as high as you getting a job offer in Midtown. And so what are you going to do? The subway systems don't go that way. And if you need to build a new subway or build a new fixed route transportation network, it costs billions of dollars, takes years, and it probably inconveniences everyone. Imagine a New York City where the transportation needs could evolve with the city's needs. It sounds kind of impossible, but there are some startups that are trying, and Revel is one of them. So imagine if you could just hop on an e-bike or another electric moped, or other kind of electric mobility options anywhere you need to go and get to your destination. Revel launched Revel's electric mopeds in New York City in June of 2018, and in an even larger way in June of 2019 this year. And I'll show you a little bit of what we've seen. So people are actually using Revels to go from the outer edges of our zone into the job centers. That's fulfilling the need that is not there, that's not being met right now by our fixed route transportation networks, and it's pretty incredible. We're also seeing people using Revels to get to other transportation hubs. So where they used to maybe have to take a bus or they have to walk, now they can use a Revel. Someone that I know who's a big Revel fan as of this summer, her route to work used to be nearly impossible. She lived in Bed-Stuy, and she had to commute to Sunset Park to give acupuncture to people in the community who needed it. And that commute was pretty rough, and also sometimes she had to go to Gowanus. But a Revel gave her that flexibility, it gave her that freedom of movement, and that's really remarkable. So let's talk about a bigger issue with New York's transportation system, and that is transit deserts. So if you've never heard of a transit desert before, it is a community where you're at least a 15-minute walk from the subway system or from rail. And transit deserts, if you live there, that means that you're getting on a bus, a public bus that's probably overcrowded, isn't coming very frequently, and you're just kind of stuck there. So this problem is actually getting worse in New York. So as prices in real estate go up in Manhattan and closer to the waterfronts, real estate developers are going farther out. They're moving into transit deserts and building property there for residential developments. There was actually an article in the New York Times in October of this year where they're talking about how this is now the new popular place for real estate developers to build. What does that mean? That means more people are not having access to New York City's subway system. This problem gets even worse when you think about how transit deserts in New York City are also the areas that are most economically disadvantaged in this city. It used to be a sign of poverty to have to walk to work, but now it's a sign of wealth. I get to walk to work. There was a Harvard study in 2015 that said that the single largest factor in a person's ability to escape from poverty was their commute time, which is just astronomical. This is a huge problem in New York City. I call it our access problem, and there's something we can do about it. So imagine in New York City where there were no transit deserts, where you could just hop on a vehicle and go where you need to go. You don't need to own the vehicle, you don't need insurance for that vehicle, it's just part of a shared network. And there's many startups like Rebel that are doing that. There's a deeper issue, and we're gonna go a little bit deeper on transportation. Transit deserts have another issue, and it's their air quality. New York City's working class families are living in neighborhoods that have worse air quality than other neighborhoods that are wealthier. So for example, the air quality in Tribeca is 28% better than the air quality in Tremont and the Bronx. And that's just unacceptable. This is leading to more hospital visits, asthma, and premature death from PM 2.5, which is just ridiculous. And this is coming from cars. A lot of it's coming from cars. Cars dominate our city. They take up 3/4 of our city streets, and they're each, 4,400 pounds. It's a lot of power just to move a vehicle that's just carrying its own weight. If you were to replace just 10% of cars with 10% of two-wheeled electric vehicles, you would see, 1-for-1, a 10% reduction in emissions. But you would also see a 40% reduction in congestion for everyone. And who doesn't hate congestion, right? So this is the problem we can do something about. Imagine New York City, where the poorest neighborhoods have the best access to electric vehicles. It sounds insane. We think electric vehicles, we think Tesla, we think luxury, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. So in New York City, we're actually seeing that cars are going, most car trips are actually under 3 miles. And that's Uber or Lyft or personal vehicle trips as well. It's a very inefficient way to move people around cities. We're also seeing, as you can see from this slide, that mopeds, the average trip is also 3 miles. So it can actually be an exact exchange. And so you might be kind of doubtful, could electric mobility actually replace the car? The car, it's comfortable, it's convenient, you can store your stuff in it. If you have an expensive one, it can entertain your children. There's a lot of benefits to car ownership. And so if you really want to replace it, you have to find an option that's reliable, that's green, and that allows you that same freedom of movement that you would get from car ownership. And so what could be more free than being able to hop on a vehicle that's not yours, that you can just reserve, the rides in city streets, goes to where you need to go, you can park it where you want in a legal parking spot, and you go about your day. That to me is true freedom of movement, and we can get there. So let's repeat where we are today. It's pretty bleak. So we've got a aging, very old infrastructure system, transportation network in the city that isn't flexible and doesn't meet new demands. We have transit deserts that are growing, not shrinking. We have a lack of transportation options that are preventing people from raising up out of poverty. And we have cars all over the city that are an inefficient way of getting people around and contribute to this air quality problem. It sounds really bleak, but I think that there's some things we can do about it. I think we can all imagine, and luckily we all have an imagination, where this city needs to go. All we need to do is hop on and ride with it.